So let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are joining us from today. We'd love to know actually where you are tuning in from. So if you wouldn't mind sending that in the chat, we would like to say a warm welcome to you. This webinar, as mentioned, is on behalf of the Executive Education Programs here at Saïd Business School. And today we're going to discuss how to make an impact on finance, and we'll be joined by 3 alumni who will be going into more details about their journey here at the business school. Just as we've mentioned, the webinar will be around 40 to 45 minutes with plenty of time for questions at the end. During the webinar, we'll introduce ourselves and our role here at the Executive Education team, and we get to reflect on the types of programs we have and hear some reflections from our alumni panel. If you were unable to join us today, this webinar will be recorded and sent out within the next 2 weeks. Once again, just want to say if you could put your mic on mute, and if you have any questions, please add it to the chat. Our team will be here to answer them for you, and we'll run that through our Q&A. So on to the next slide. Yep. So just running through the introductions, the overviews and alumni reflections today and the Q&A. So on to the next slide after that. Okay, so just to introduce yourself. So my name is Clara Blackings-Pollard, and I work as a program consultant here at Executive Education at Saïd Business School. My role is to meet all the participants who are interested in doing a program here at the business school and to help you with your learning journey to help you choose the best program and to find the right time for you to do that. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Carrie, who'll tell you a little bit more about herself.
Thanks so much, Clara, and great to see so many people joining us today on this webinar. I hope it proves valuable in starting your executive education journey. So my name is Carrie. I'm one of our program sales manager within the executive education team, and I also lead on our valuation of private assets program. So work closely with Clara and the rest of the team in executive education in filling participants onto our programs. So next slide, please. So I will start by giving you a quick overview of my program before handing over to Clara to cover real estate and private equity. If there are aspects of these programs which strike your interest or align with your role, please do make a note. The valuation of private assets program is directed by Ludovic Filippo and Anna Kozalika. This is 5 days long and really immerses you in the world of private assets. So it really aims to provide you with the skills and confidence to make and advise on investment decisions across classes. So that can be venture capital and startups, it can be corporate acquisitions, real assets and private credit. So this program tends to run once per year. We've just run our recent program on the 14th of October this year. So our next cohort will be running on the 13th to 17th of October 2025. The program really allows you to gain hands-on valuation experience, across infrastructure, real estate, emerging markets, and of course the upcoming kind of ESG and impact investing trends. It also focuses on the skills needed in this space, such as negotiation strategies, due diligence, financial modelling, identifying common valuation mistakes, solving disputes, and strategies to close the deal. So it's a very kind of interactive week, lots of case studies, group activities, role plays. So it not only allows you to apply your knowledge in a practical way, but also builds your connections with the rest of the cohort. So I'll now hand back over to Clara, who can give you a bit of an overview about her programs before we go into the details of the cohort profiles.
Thank you, Carrie. So I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the Oxford Real Estate Programme and the Oxford Private Equity Programme. So starting with the Oxford Real Estate Programme, that's hosted by our Programme Director, Andrew Baum. And that's, again, a very interactive 5-day programme where we look at real estate as an asset class. And we do that through looking at different types of case studies. We have a fantastic real estate project in which our group gets to pitch a real estate fund, and then they get real-time advice from our investors, which include Professor Andrew Baum and 3 other investors. And I think that's a real highlight of the program because you really get some good advice, which I'm sure some of the alumni may speak to, which is that works, that doesn't work. Why would I invest in you? Some key aspects that investors really need to make and think about in mind. The great thing about the program as well, which speaks to all our programs, is the diversity of the cohort. So we have participants coming from all over the globe. So from Africa, from EU, UK, South America, America, Australia, and Thailand and Southeast Asia as well. I just want to say thank you to everyone. I've just looked and we have lots of participants coming who are from Ghana, Nigeria, Canada, Malawi, Bhutan, Istanbul. Hello and welcome. You're very welcome to the program. So thanks for being here. So the real estate program is running from the 18th to the 22nd of November, and then we'll be releasing our 2025 iteration as well. The Oxford Private Equity Programme is an overview of private equity asset class. So similar to other programs, it's a mixture of senior leaders who come to the program really wanting to understand how equity works in different markets and how people are interacting with this asset class. So we cover things from leverage buyouts, venture capital, from raising funds right up until exits. It's a really useful program if you're thinking about going into that asset class and you're thinking about the framework, but most importantly with the valuation program, the real estate program. All of these programs allow you the opportunity to network with other individuals who have been doing these types of deals for experience levels of 10, 15, 20 plus years. And they really want to come and have a refresh of what's happening in the market and to think about how they can do things a little bit differently, whether it's scaling, diversifying your portfolio. It's really about expanding your knowledge and being open to new opportunities. So the next private equity program runs from the 10th to the 14th of February. And we're delighted to have Tatiana today, who'll be talking about that, as well as James and Jan, who'll be talking about the real estate program. So if you do have some questions, today's a great time to ask them. Just moving on to the next slide, please. So, without further ado, we would actually like to hand over to our alumni. We're really grateful for them coming to this webinar and sharing the time with us. And I'd like to start with Tatiana today, actually. Tatiana, welcome.
Hi, Clara. It's a
Hi.
pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, Tatiana. It would be wonderful if you could share some experience of what you're doing at the moment, what brought you to the program, and really importantly, the question we get asked quite a lot is, what did you do next? So if you wouldn't mind sharing a few minutes with us, we can take some questions from the panel afterwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm so happy to see even the attendees on this webinar. You can see the diversity. To be honest, that was one of the main reasons why I chose this program. So happy to see that it continues to attract this variety of backgrounds and nationalities. So my name is Tatiana Cordova. I'm currently managing director of a single family office. I'm based in Dubai. And I attended the private equity program last year. So I come from a different background. When I joined, or at least when I applied to the program, I was in the government sector. I was the commercial attaché of the Embassy of Colombia here in the Gulf region. And in my experience, I facilitated some investment going into Colombia, which gave me the initial exposure to private equity, simply because most of the investments that are coming from this region into Latin America are mostly M&A, not so much greenfield investment. So I was introduced to private equity in this manner. And as I was thinking of what to do next, what challenge to take on, I enjoyed the process that I saw. I enjoyed seeing the potential that private equity finance has to impact developing markets. But I was also able to see some of the roadblocks in these transactions. But as a government employee, my role was to facilitate. I did not get involved directly in these deals. So I decided to go into that and see if I could help to solve those roadblocks and really go into private equity. So as I was looking to make this change, I was looking at courses, and I was looking at three main criteria, to be honest. Number one, global outlook, global participation, in terms of backgrounds, in terms of geography as well. Number two, some focus on developing emerging markets. Because of my background, public sector, economic development, I am a firm believer in the impact that private equity can have in these. So I really wanted a program that didn't just give me examples of case studies of funds in the US, in the UK, in the traditional markets, but really exposed me to what is happening in emerging markets and gave us like really good case studies. And lastly, I was looking for a course that could give me the foundations, because I was not coming from this industry. I wanted to really understand the whole ecosystem. And this because of my role previously, I was very involved in, let's say, in the process of facilitating investment. It was a lot of investor relations, government relations, corporate relations, for which I believe is key to be able to understand the needs and the point of view of everyone, of every stakeholder in the ecosystem. So that was also a key point, that I was looking into a course that would allow me to get those solid foundations, 360, to then decide what way to go into the private equity. So that's why I chose the private equity course at Oxford. Even though, and I have to say, even though I was looking for those criteria, it surpassed my expectations. The diversity that I found in the cohort was absolutely amazing, in terms of backgrounds. So we had people with experience in private equity, in real estate, in venture capital, someone who just graduated from undergrad and going to the master's program. We had regulators as well, government officials, regulators. We had investment promotion agencies. We have entrepreneurs. It was really, really diverse, which helped within the conversations that we had throughout the week. It helped to give that 360 view at every discussion that we had. And after the course, I decided that I really wanted to go to do private equity, and I have my new role now, managing a family office that is very particular in the sense that we are very exposed to direct investments into private equity funds as well, simply because of the background of the family. And I believe that the course really gave me the foundations to be able to have a 360 overview of the industry. I was not looking to go into technical. My background is economics and statistics, but I wasn't looking to go myself into a technical role of evaluations. It was more, let me see the whole ecosystem, because I believe my strengths are more in connecting dots and connecting stakeholders. I want to understand everything to be more impactful that way.
Thank you, Tatiana. And I think we found from the private equity programs that you joined, it really is about relationship building as well. And we've had some really great conversations. Two questions that have sort of sprung is, what would you say would be the one key takeaway that you got from the private equity program? And also, we talk a lot about challenges that women face in the financial sector, but you have a different sort of point of view on that. So you look more towards the successes. So I'd really love for you to expand on that a little bit more.
Absolutely. I think the cohort that we had, I dare to say that it was the best so far. But really, we are still we still have the WhatsApp group. We're still in conversation because it's such an international and diverse group. There's a lot of traveling involved. So we actually met, here in the GCC, in Europe. I know that there's been a few meetings, and interestingly, there's also been some people that have changed roles and have used the group to get further information, to get advice on, and to really help connect those dots. When sometimes you're looking for a career change, or where you are growing within an organization and it's the first time you're doing something, the probability that there's someone in the cohort that has done it before is high, and because of that diversity lens that the cohort is looked at from seniority, from experience, from industry, and that has been absolutely great. Also, in my case, because I'm looking at cross-border deals, cultural awareness and understanding of the countries and the cultures that we're doing deals with is key. And that I've been able also to bridge that gap using the network of the cohort that we had, and that was great. And not just the cohort, but also the Oxford alumni chapters. In my case, here in the region, in the UAE, in Dubai. And I would say that for me, the biggest impact that the course had was the emerging markets afternoon that we had. So we had, well, and something that I haven't mentioned too, is the academic and practical approach of the program. So as someone that was coming new to private equity, you try to understand more, to read more about it, but there's so much noise in media, in announcements, in the size of the market, in the type of deals. I really enjoyed the academic approach to what is actually happening in the market, what vehicles are really being used, what vehicles or structures have really been successful according to the research. I think that helped to clean out a little bit of the noise that sometimes with media and some big transactions can make a lot of noise, but we need to look at the 80% of the transactions. How are they? How do they really perform? And in my case, the emerging markets afternoon was great, looking at it from a academic point of view, but also from a practical. So we had a case study. They actually came. They were in person with us. And really, they were very honest on the challenges that are faced in emerging markets for this sector. Some of the hedging or instruments or structuring instruments that they've come up with to really leverage, to really hedge the risks that are associated with emerging markets. And just have a very honest discussion on the reality of that. I really enjoyed that. I think it was helpful in the sense that we saw a very good example of what can be done, but very realistic in that it's really a challenge, but the market is showing that people are starting to look more into it. And then from the diversity point of view, I mean, being now in this family office industry, it has been very interesting, the experience between seeing like a general finance market when you go to an event, when you go to a course, you see a lot of men, not a lot of women participate in these conversations. But then from a single family office point of view, it's been different, especially surprising here in the Middle East, where you're starting to see women from the families get more involved in these conversations. So to my surprise, the single family office world, I've been able to see a more diverse group of people participating in discussions, more diverse in terms of the deals that we're looking at as well, simply because the family office perspective, a lot of them, or in our case, is also very long-term. It's not so short-term as a typical private equity fund will be. So I think that's also or at least in this new role, I've also been able to diversify that idea of the finance industry that I had on private equity. Is not just the funds and the traditional structured funds. So we have the family offices that can act through direct investments that way, but also on like these investment clubs that we see more and more happening, or finder funds that are coming up now in Europe as well.
Thank you, Tatiana, for sharing that. I'm sure there's going to be more questions for you towards the end of the webinar. So we're going to hand over to Jan, actually. So Jan, thank you for joining us. I must say, during the cohort, you were someone that was very, very much remembered from our group, mostly a lot from the interactions that you had, from what you were, some of the things you were sharing with the group. But yeah, please tell us a bit more about your real estate experience and what you're doing next and how it's affected you as well.
Okay, well, just a very short introduction. So I'm a private equity person. I've been in private equity for what is now 15 years, maybe. I run my own fund for the last 3 years. So I came into this real estate executive program from a different industry, basically, where I was only about 1 year into building a real estate group that we have within the private equity structure. So my idea was to come to this program to really get a general overview about how this big real estate world functions, and hear from interesting people. And back then I was deciding where to go, which program to choose. And one of my colleagues actually studied at Oxford master's degree, and he said, well, this particular professor that does the real estate program is really good, and you should go there. It's absolutely the best choice you can make. So I listened to him, and he was right. So that's why I chose Oxford, and then we went over there. And I've been to other programs as well, and I have to say that this was so far the best experience I had.
Thank you. And it's really interesting that you segued from private equity into real estate, and because we have people who look at doing that, and what kind of advice would you give them, and why is it a good thing to do?
Well, if you are from private equity, you are by definition a generalist investor. Yeah. So private equity is about understanding the world, understanding connections, understanding people, different views, and you sort of have to have this broad. Even though you're doing just industrial private equity, for example, you have to have this broad view of how things work, and the basic economics of every deal work the same. So it's not that different from real estate. It has specifics, obviously, but it's still the same kind of calculation. But seeing the connections and the way this executive program was structured, that you had really like 10, maybe 10, I don't know exactly how many sessions there were, but let's say 10 very interesting speakers from top-notch organizations. You really gain a very nice understanding of how the whole industry actually works, and how it goes from the actual building of the buildings all the way to technology, and cover the whole sort of universe of this real estate. So I think that is for any private equity person, I think this is very valuable thing.
Were there any kind of surprises that you were sort of expecting, or were there any ways that we sort of surpassed your expectation on the program that you can reflect on?
I think the most important thing that surprised me is that I came in there to expect really, so it's a short program. It's 4.5 days, right? And it will be very general. It will be like, you will get just like a broad overview, and it will not get into much detail. But I was very wrong. It was in some of the sessions, it was very detailed. We were able to ask really punchy questions about how things work, and go into the inner workings of all this. So it was not just a general program in the end, but it was I really gained a lot of detailed insights into some of the things that were discussed.
Thank you. And we spoke a lot about sort of networking. How as the networking that you developed at the program, have you been able to use that to your leverage, or have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the cohort we had was very alive. So we had post school sort of gatherings every day, and it was quite a lot of fun. And with some of the people I'm still in touch. Actually, I also went a couple times to this annual real estate conference that Oxford does in Saïd. And we met there with the people, so that was quite cool. But not only it's just on not only on the friendly level, but with one of the people from the program, he actually connected me to a Blackstone person in London that I needed to talk to, and I didn't have a connection to, and it sort of just comes like randomly, but it's there, and you can contact those people, and then they can put you in touch, and I think it's a very valuable thing to do.
The other thing I want to ask really is, which we get asked all the time, and there's so many countless stories, is what did you do next? You came here, you experienced the program, you made a new network. How did you take that forward, and how is it impacting your, say, role day to day now?
Well, I'm gonna say one particular example that actually I learned at the program from one of the speakers who has a startup. It's not a startup anymore. I think it was 2 years ago, but back then it was, I think, 2-year-old company. That was a mixture of, it was basically a prop tech thing. And I actually took some of the ideas that were mentioned there and implemented it into our business model. So I think this is very, this is like the biggest impact that the program had on me, because we actually created a product out of it. A little bit different. It wasn't like copy paste. It was just like, well, okay, this is a good idea. We have a different environment here, so we have to modify it for the Czech environment, you know, and so on, the legal system. But it actually works, and we were able to actually really use some specific thing that was mentioned there. And on the second note, again, it's the general overview. I think that it would take me to read, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 books to actually get into this, to get this snapshot of how these things work. And you can get this in 4 days. You can ask follow-up questions. You can go into as much detail as you want. I think it really helps me to put the whole world puzzle together just by being there.
And one final question really, which is, what kind of advice would you give people who are thinking about applying for an education program? What sort of top tips or advice would you like to share with them?
Well, I think that the best thing to do is to choose a program that sort of broadens your perspective from my point of view, but it's very hard to generalize this because everybody's coming from a different background. But if it's people like me who have some sort of experience already behind them and want to broaden their view, it's definitely worth it, and you should go.
Thank you, James. We'll probably have some more questions to throw your way towards the end of the webinar, but thanks for having that moment with us. We're just going to hand over to James. Hi, James. How are you? I think you might be on mute, so if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself.
Hi, Clara.
Hi, James. How are you doing? Joining us from Africa today. The weather's always good, I hear.
The weather is always good. It's lovely.
Oh, okay.
28 degrees, 30 degrees today.
Things that
As always.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. Would you, James, like to share your experience being on the real estate program? You came a year before Jan, so we'd love to know your reflections being in a different cohort and what you thought about your experience.
Well, so I came to this program after 20 years of leaving the classroom. So you can imagine, I didn't know what to expect. But then it's one of the best decisions I've made, looking at where I was. I was in my own space, the biggest inner city developer in my country. They call my company the city's finest and all that. And you know, you never know, and you never know what to expect until you go out of your space. I think it's about one of the best things that has happened to me in the last few years. And I always reminisce about it, to tell people about it, 2, 3 people, colleagues of mine, I say, go to this school, go to this program. It's an amazing program. Well, whether by chance or the program itself, afterwards, a lot of things have happened. I became a chancellor of a public university, you know, and all that. I talk about the program a lot. My takeaways, I was shocked when at one of the classes, my professor Andrew Baum would say, "Listen, you are in the manufacturing business. You manufacture houses," and I couldn't understand. And he brought another person, the Berkeley approach, and explained to me what I took away from this program really is the fact that debt is good, and when managed well, it could help you to expand your program, because we borrowed very little in our program. We're recycling whatever money we're getting, and so it was taking us longer to finish projects. Again, too, the program would teach me how to rent more and hold on to properties. We just would build and sell and move on. So it was a whole different approach, and the diversity was amazing. I still have invitations I've not honored. I've lined them up all the way to Kuwait, to Saudi. I have all these invitations, and I don't know when I could finish them. And my mates, the program mates, were so amazing, and it's something else. The feeling is different until you experience it yourself. When you walk into a room with all this diversity, and everybody tries to make it look as if we're all equal, we can work together, move together, and it's a whole different feeling. I I I would say it's one of the programs I've attended that has given me so much mileage. Even when I came back, a business school, one of the very top business school in my country, Ghana, would invite me to come in and lecture part-time if I could have the time. But, I still haven't honored it. And so you can see what this program, and you see this program is a very practical program. I expected to see, I've done a bit of programs on real estate, other unis and all that, but this is, Andrew Baum gives you a different approach. It's very practical, and I love the approach. And what can I say? The networking alone is something money can't buy. And if you want to experience it, you need to be there to see the networking alone. People from different backgrounds. I'm among the very few people who came to the table really as builders. I mean, real estate people, builders, and I would take away real estate investment. It's at a different level. Yaya Gano's approach to 22 Bishopsgate always amazed me. When you are where we are in an emerging market, you think access to funding for your project is the biggest headache, and that people have it easy somewhere. Well, they can accept this program would teach me that people can get funding, but there's a different headache altogether. Permits, land licensing, and all that. It's a huge in my space, in my jurisdiction. That is not a headache. So my headache is funding, but then I would know, I would learn from Yaya Gano that he had a hell of time just changing the direction of his building, and that would amaze you. So this program also taught me that there's different programs in real estate, different problems in real estate, and I love it. I love the school. That's all. That's the long and short, and anything I can do and say to help. This program taught me how to practically raise money. We set up the Rich Back Capital and raised money for a project in Manchester, and it's still it's still imprinted in my mind and all that. So what I can say is that you need to experience it to see how I feel about the program. And I feel great about the program. I won't mince words, and I won't put it away. It teaches you. I mean, after 20 years, after my PhD, after it was 20 years, I walked into a classroom technically, and it's all different. You put everything you are doing aside, and then you listen to all these facilitators. You listen to Andrew Baum, and he tells you, listen, you're worth millions, but this is the classroom, and it's so in private. It makes you feel like a student again, and he preps you up to learn something and take away something. So it's an amazing program. It's changed my outlook. Don't even ask Clara. It's changed my outlook towards my real estate business in a positive way. I can't tell you anything negative. That's the truth. So if
Oh,
you ask
thank
me,
you.
about the negative aspect, I don't have it. Because when I'm giving a standing ovation and everybody wishing me well during my birthday, miles away from my home country, is a different feeling. So I have nothing negative to say, but only positive things. I think I had one or two a person coming in this year to your program or something like that, but that is how it is. So amazing time at Oxford.
Oh, thank you, James. Really enjoyed hearing your feedback of your time here in Oxford, and I'm glad that it made such a huge mark on you. Tatiana sort of alluded to it earlier, how important it is to come from emerging markets and to really experience the programs here in Oxford. What would you say to people from emerging markets to encourage them to come and experience these types of programs?
Well,
Yeah, Clara.
yeah.
It's for Tatiana, right?
But
Or
we
for
can
me?
start with Tatiana and then come back to yourself. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
I mean, I was going to say, James, you're a clear example of the benefit. I think sometimes because of the headlines that we see and because of the information that you get, the kind of questions that you get when you're fundraising for emerging markets, you think that is not possible. And I think having the whole afternoon with people that have done it, that are doing it, was an eye opener. I think it has the potential, like James was saying in his case, to change the outlook on your business, or sometimes, in our case, what I see happen is that we get so caught up with the problems that we have, in emerging markets that are very specific to our context, and we think that we're the only ones experiencing it. We find out that we're not, and there are countries that have experienced it and developed solutions for that. So I think that's the biggest gain, I would say, for emerging markets, and the experience that we, or at least I'm having in this new role where we have investments globally. I feel like that whole afternoon really made a change in changing my perspective. And it's also a thing in investment in general, is really understanding that there are very different types of investors. There is a lot of money out there. You just have to find the people that are aligned to you. And I think that's like my biggest takeaway for emerging markets. You just have to, search a lot, but they're there.
James, would you like to add, or perhaps Jan?
Yeah. What it is that the program teaches you that every region is different, and that you are not the only one with problems. If to raise monies, there was this person we discussed in the program to raise money. Andrew Baum would say, would discuss him in the program. He had to travel back and forth Australia for, I think, 22 or 26 times before he could even put the funding in place, and that got into his head. And then you sit down and you are unable to raise funds in, say, 6 months or a year, and then you think the world is coming to an end. It makes you understand that there are issues when it comes to real estate, because the fact is that it's the only thing, when managed well, would always give you value, extra value. And so anything associated with it is not a walk in the park. So it's the appreciation of what happens elsewhere. It's something, the practical appreciation of it is something you can't get anywhere. And that is one of the strong takeaways going forward. Anyway, I've got my son back in Oxford to do a summer thing. And I think because of the kind of learning methodology that I came to see there. So my son comes back, 17-year-old. There's a teen program. So those are all things that I got from this program. I got a couple of people to join the program. It's very practical oriented, and the approach is very modern, and I love it. I mean, it's not easy, and I'm quite sorry to say, but I'm quite difficult to please. So so I'm happy with it. People who would come years after would learn something that I still feel you cannot get anywhere. This program would teach me that I'm underutilizing my skills, and I said thank you, and I walked away with it, and now I've enhanced it the way I was weak in fundraising and understanding the equity in real estate, and then the utilization of equity and all. This is what the program taught me, and that's where I was weak in the overall my business approach.
And over to Jan, we have a question that came through. Europe is a completely different ball games in terms of investment and opportunities. Did this program help you to sort of open the eyes of investors in your particular market? And how do you think Europe fends to other areas as well?
You mean mainland Europe, I assume. Look, I don't think it's, if I compare because the program was quite UK focused or like Western focused. I'm in Central Europe, but I think that in general, principles apply everywhere the same. I don't think it makes such a difference if you are in UK, in Europe, and in Africa. I mean, the principles of how to invest, how to look at things, what to look for are the same. Obviously, there are particularities of each region, and the more you venture away from UK, the bigger they are. But for me personally, apart from some legal framework that obviously changes country by country, I think that for me the differences aren't that big.
Thank you. A different type of question. Were there any, open to anyone who wishes to take it, were there any challenges that you were maybe apprehensive about when joining the program, and how did you overcome those? Jan, do you want to start maybe? If you had any.
I didn't, so I have nothing to add, sorry.
James, perhaps?
It was more with the inclusivity and then acceptance. That was my worry. I think at one point I mentioned it to Clara, I mentioned it to you. I was surprised at one of our breaks to see everything so smoothly organized, and everybody working together to help each other. And that was one of my surprises and my worries. But then once the program started, I got to know. In fact, even the first day in the evening, a couple of people I didn't know, would just, Gilliam and the rest would just let's go out and catch up and have a drink, and that really loosened me up, and then it was all the same going through. So that was my only concern, if I had one.
Tatiana, over to yourself.
Yeah, I didn't have a difficulty. I think when I was looking at the programs, it was sort of understanding whether the evaluation of the private equity was the one for me. I think that was something that I was I struggle a little bit. But I think after I spoke as well, I think I spoke with a colleague of yours, Clara, at the beginning, that helped me clarify, the difference between those two, and understanding that, I wanted to go back to the foundation simply because I had been exposed to private equity, to certain players in private equity, and that's it. But I didn't really have a strong foundation of the ecosystem to then go and do evaluations, because I was not looking to go into the evaluations side. Was more on the executive, managerial, investor relations, corporate relations kind of roles. I think that was the only difficulty I found, trying to decide which one.
Thank you. I'm just going to move on to the Q&A portion, because we've been reflecting on some of the other questions, but we've had one specifically through about real estate. So the question is, with the real estate course, were there tangible tools, i.e. valuations, which you received and managed to implement transactionally taken in your business? That can be open to Jan or James.
Maybe I'll start. Well, I mentioned basically, so when I was speaking before, that yes, there were definitely tangible things that I took, but it really depends where you're coming from and if you can implement it. But one of the things that I mentioned is that everything that's said is a base for an idea, and you have to work. It's only up to you how you use that idea, or how you use what you learn to apply in your real world, because it's never the same everywhere, as was mentioned, but it's only as tangible as you make it. So I don't really, it's really about what the question is about. What is tangible for you, right? So is it did you learn to calculate a formula? Well, yes, you learned that as well, but or tangible can be, did you apply it actually, like in the real world, like in the particular situation? For me personally, yes, I did. So really, you have to be a conversation to really get to the bottom of this, I think.
Okay, Clara.
Did you have more to add to the question, James?
Yes. To add to this, for me, one of the things that that one of the tangible things that I took away basically was that you always have to have your land documents all set and done, your licenses all set and done, your legislation all set and done, so that you can fall on any minute. And you become a bit lazy when you have so many of that, and you wait and say, speaking for myself, I would always say, listen, that can wait till I need it. And I learned that that is also something that can slow you down in the time of need. So always get all those things all set and done and waiting, so that I can fall on anytime you want to raise funds, anytime a partner wants to come in. All these things are key. And I was made to understand the how necessary it is, and that's one of the key takeaways. I always took it for granted. Listen, I can do it anytime I want it, but then that is not the case. So it was an eye opener.
Thank you. Just going to quickly hand over to Carrie. Are there any other questions that have come up in the Q&A that we may have missed?
Yeah, I've been answering as I go, generally regarding kind of program suitability, but as I say, Clara and I are always happy to have a conversation with anyone if you're unsure about criteria and which program to choose. As Tatiana's spoken to, sometimes the hardest decision is deciding which one. So we've kind of gone through those questions on the Q&A, but anything else that comes through last minute that people want to pop in, please do. I'll also put our links in the chat if you do want to book in time with Clara or myself to discuss anything further if questions come up afterwards.
Great. I guess as we've only got a couple of minutes left of the webinar, one of the things that I'd like to ask from each of you, if you may, is can you perhaps list maybe one or two key things that were highlights from the program that you'd like to share? I think you've mentioned some of them, so happy to repeat some that you've mentioned already. Tatiana, do you want to start?
Sure. Key highlights. I haven't mentioned, but I think it was very nice that pretty much every afternoon and every night there was either a dinner plan or we planned something. I think everyone was there to make the most of it. And maybe that was a challenge, making the most of it and be able to give 100% every day in class. But I think that was a highlight because it really, at least in our cohort, it really, you felt like you hadn't been there for just 5 days. It felt longer. And I would say that was number one, not just like the academic and the practicality of it, but also the social aspect as well. And I think the mix between academic and practicality for me was great. Just to clear out some noise and to understand also the different point of view, from people that are looking at this from an academic side, but also people who are looking at regulatory side. They make decisions through academic research, not necessarily through practicality, and you can start seeing some of those gaps. And it was interesting because we even got some heated debates just because of the different perspectives there. So that was great.
Jan, do you want to share your highlight?
Yeah, so I agree with Tatiana that I think one of the highlights, so we aren't talking about only the program itself, but one of the highlights is definitely the environment. So Oxford by itself is beautiful, it's must see, and the ability to, because part of the program is you get the walkthroughs, you have the dinner, and so on. I think this is also an experience you don't get so easily because it's not open to public to do it this way. And the whole environment of Oxford and the professors and the halls, like from Harry Potter, it's really something that I enjoyed very much. So it's definitely a soft highlight that I would mention. And the second highlight, it's basically one thing I would say about the program is, well, really it's a variety of speakers and topics within the big topic that you're attending. It's not usually like that. It's really like you get a really overview of all the things that are related to the real estate industry, and it's definitely very well structured.
James, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah. One thing that runs through the three of us is the bonding and the social aspect of the program, well crafted and all, and the nice dinners we had, amazing, and I love to do it again. And then also on the academic side, I mean, the groupings to form companies to raise funds. Mine was the Ridgeback Capital, and I always mention it. And I'm happy to add that we won the day, and so yes, we raised money to do a project in Manchester, and then the judges felt it was amazing. So that was also a great highlight for me. And I would always be thankful to the team that puts this program together.
Oh, thank you very much for all of you for sharing your reflections. Before we sort of wrap up the webinar, we do have 2 or 3 pictures, if you guys remember, from your cohorts. So we've got Jan's cohort, and we've got Tatiana's cohort first. So those are a glimpse of kind of the diversity we spoke about in terms of the people who are in the program. And we mentioned some of the nights out. So Tatiana, we did find a picture of you going to the Bodleian Library, as I think was next. Yep. So we did have some time to go and look at some of those Harry Potter-esque pictures. And the next one we also have Jan's group as well. So some highlights of the people who came to see Jan. I couldn't find some of the pictures from the nights out just because they were just so extraordinarily fun that I didn't have enough time to capture all of the photographs. So I do apologize for that one. And then over to James's cohort as well. Yep, as well. So yeah, just some of the pictures to reflect on the different types of participants who come, because here in Oxford we really are about being inclusive. So we really want to talk to everyone and discuss what your learning journey is and how we can help you to achieve your objectives. So just moving on to the last two slides, we've had the questions. So as we've mentioned, we do have applications open for the programs at the moment. The dates are there on the screen. I will say with the Oxford Real Estate Programme, which is in 2 weeks, applications are closing. We only have about one spot available. So if that is you, then I do encourage yourself to apply as soon as possible. Private equity is 10th to the 14th of February, and valuation of private assets is 13th to 17th of October. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just as we mentioned earlier, just handing back, if you'd like to talk to us, please do reach out. That's what we're here for, to answer those questions. Whatever the questions are, small or big, that's what myself and Carrie are here for. I'd just like to hand back over to Carrie to close us out for the webinar.
Thanks so much, Clara. Yeah, and just to echo what Clara said, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to join us, and a massive thank you to Tatiana, Jan and James for joining us today. It's really wonderful to have engaged alumni, and they've spoken to that in terms of the bonding and the experience. So we really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your experiences. Our contact details are there. We will be sending a recording out, so if you want to revisit anything that our alumni have said at all, please do. We're really happy to help, and hopefully we'll welcome you to Oxford at one of our upcoming cohorts. But thank you all, and have a lovely rest of your morning, afternoon or evening.